Hello and welcome to my little talk here on bullying. Bullying seems to be a big problem socially right now, and it seems to be a big mystery to a lot of people. Actually, back in the 1960s, Eric Berne wrote a book called Games People Play, and he talked about a lot of different kinds of games, and looking at social dynamics, and bullying is simply one form of what he called a psychological game. And he called it a game because it's a set of interactions and exchanges between people that have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It is a competition, so it establishes a win-lose situation. So some of the players are going to win and some of the players are going to lose. And the two players involved in bullying are what you call persecutor and victim. This is called the Cartman triangle, and the third position is rescuer. And people do move around on these when you're playing games. Anytime you see someone assume, this is a line that establishes what's level. If we are talking right now, so this is simply an exchange. That would be a level sort of exchange. Persecutor, rescuer are attempting to take a one-up position, okay, always. So you see people taking one-up positions and people taking one-down positions, then they're setting up what can be a game situation, and generally they are, okay? So a lot of this is simply programmed. Okay, there's very little thinking involved. So when people are doing these kind of things, it's kind of stuff we learn as little kids. We learn it in the families. We end up with our favorite positions. Pretty much anybody who's in the persecutor position has been a victim at times. They have been victimized and decided that the persecutor position is a better position for themselves. These are defined as power games. So what you're winning in the end is power, and what the persecutor is the competition of bullying is to try to take the power of someone else, okay? Because if they get someone else's power, then presumably they will be more powerful themselves, okay? When I was teaching this was week 3 of a 10-week class in Psychology 100 and 101 in community colleges at Denver is where I was teaching this. I learned it in the early 1970s, 71, 72, 73, and I was teaching it in 73, I believe. What I loved about teaching this kind of stuff is once you understand the dynamics of the game, you can choose not to play it, and you will have an advantage over everyone who is playing it, okay? Con games, hard sales, a lot of times those are really good game players. The people who are good at selling as pressure techniques are good at engaging people in a game, and they're trying to get people to stop thinking for themselves, to take control, and so on. So all of the exchanges that we're talking about are going to be along this line between persecutor and victim and back and forth, okay? The idea is if you understand, and I used to say this toward the end of that class, this is very practical stuff. You learn it today, you can use it tonight. And it's valuable because once you understand what the dynamics are, you're not going to be a victim to the game, or you don't have to be a victim to the game. There is a choice, always a choice involved in whether to play the game. There's an invitation, there's a hook. It may be very compelling, and it's designed to be very compelling, okay? If I'm wanting to persecute and I get into a very big angry position and I puff myself up, and I can use a lot of energy, put a lot of energy into trying to get you to be fearful and in feeling in danger enough that you will accept whatever I want and let me win the game. Okay? Like I said, a lot of this is programmed very young. I was programmed to be a victim. My dad would get into such an angry state that you would call it rage. It was kind of a family tradition, and when I reached adulthood, I decided I didn't want to be that way. That wasn't who I wanted to end up being, is to follow that family tradition. Okay, so I learned this stuff, and I got into the mental health field for all the wrong reasons, like a lot of people do. Probably 3/4 of the people that get involved in the mental health field as psychologists, psychiatrists, and so on, or as one of our trainers in the early 70s was saying, or this is my paraphrase, they're looking for clues at the scene of their own crime, and I was, and said maybe 25% of the people who were being trained at that point. This was training, not book learning. Okay, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of theoretical stuff. This stuff is all about dynamics, and Eric Berne was a master at being able to watch what people are doing and parse out what is going on and to write it up as sequences. He really had his head turned on, and a lot of people don't have their heads turned on, don't ever do their own thinking. So the idea with this is, if you understand and we give you a good enough description of what bullying is, then the solutions to this problem are going to be contained in the definition. So I've already given several clues. It is a competition. There are players involved. Two different positions that players are going to take is persecutor and victim, and there can be 3 or 4 persecutors in a situation and the same number of victims or more. Okay, so people have to get hooked into the competition. Competition always means that it's a win-lose situation, and in terms of bullying games, what you win is power, because it is a power game. Okay, one of the keys to it is what the spoken level is not the significant level. It's an underlying meaning, an ulterior meaning underneath. That is the significant one, and that's the one that we're trained to respond to. Okay, that's very significant. Okay, as I said, all this stuff gets programmed from very young, and you'll hear an older brother doing something with his sister. The sister says, "Oh, I'm victimized. I'm screaming, mommy, mommy, come rescue me by persecuting my older brother." Okay, he going to tell on him and make him be a victim instead. Okay, like I said, it gets programmed in at a fairly young level. There are 3 levels to it. There's the social level, and that's what we play in public settings. And if you listen, you hear a lot of game playing going on, and you'll probably start recognizing more of it. There's all kinds of games, but we're just looking specifically at games, at the power game of bullying. So there's social bullying, then there's the level at which it's done in private. That's a much more serious level, okay? And then the 3rd level is violence, and that's going to end up in involving police. It's going to involve blood loss, courtrooms and all kinds of, that's a third level of games that get played. Dynamics don't change. It's just the level of seriousness. Okay, so the methods to persecute commonly are intimidation, and older, bigger people tend to, you can intimidate simply with physical size. People bulk up, they puff up, they do all kinds of things in order to look bigger and more intimidating, okay? Control is a way to persecute. And there are a lot of control games that some are power games, some are not specifically power games. And one other ways, if you can project an attribute onto someone else, call them names, give them labels. You hear a lot of that coming out of Washington right now. Listen to the news if you want examples of running this persecutor power game to try to get someone to give their power to the perpetrator or the persecutor. Okay, that's actually enough right there of a description of the bullying game to give us everything we need at this point to solve the problem of bullying. Okay, one is, I said, one thing that doesn't work is, I said, this is a lot of programmed stuff. There's very little thinking involved. So developmentally, this is operating at a precognitive level for the most part. Kind of thinking that's going to be involved is where a persecutor is going to be looking around and identifying someone, and a victim is going to be looking around and saying, "Oh my God, there's a persecutor. I'm going to be afraid of him." Okay. As far as understanding what's going on, once you understand this, you have a tremendous number of opportunities and options. And there are a lot of choices involved if you start thinking. Because the first thing is, there is an invitation to play. And there's an invitation to assume the position. Okay? So, your first level of strategy to avoid that is don't play. Okay? You don't have to assume the level, the position of victim. You don't have to take the bait. A simple example of that is my dad used to play this game with salespeople that would come in to his shop, and he would say, "Hey George, you know what I like about you?" George was like, "Whoa, you gonna give me a compliment?" "Yeah." "Not a damn thing." So there's the kick. So it's actually a very polite social thing. It's an insult. It's like, "Oh, I'm just kidding. Get over it." But it's definitely a game because there was the invitation. Do you know what I like about you? Okay. Again, what we need to listen to or listen for is the ulterior meaning to that. And if someone is giving us the invitation, we need to listen specifically to what the spoken level is, and respond very precisely to that. And here's another example. I was in another print shop, and the boss came in twice in the year and a half that I worked for him because he was not a serious game player. And he said, "Gary," he had this little bit of a smile, so he knew he was up to something. And he said, "Gary, you think you know what you're doing?" And I looked at him, and I looked down at what I was working on, and I looked at him again and I said, yeah, I think I do. And he turned around and walked away. I didn't accept the bait because there was obviously an ulterior thing going on, because that was a really, if you listen to the spoken thing, it's a really stupid thing to say. It's like, do you know what you're doing? I mean, he hired me because I knew what I was doing. He hadn't questioned my work. He was my boss. If I wasn't doing something the way he wanted it done, he did have an authority over me. He did have a one-up position that was negotiated. He was my boss. He hired me. He could fire me. He paid me because I did the work. Okay? So to ask me that question was silly. And a lot of these invitations, if you listen precisely to what they're saying and respond directly to that, you can give the message, I'm not going to play. I'm not going to assume the position. Okay? Giving unprogrammed responses is another way to disrupt this. It's like if you're fishing, you throw out a lure. And you can imagine the fish sitting there saying, think we ought to take that bait, or is this a catch and release guy, or is this a guy going to take us home for dinner? I don't mind the catch and release, but I don't want to be taken home to dinner. An unprogrammed response would be something like, here's something that some ladies in a singles group, and it was a group that I wanted to be part of and I wanted to continue being part of. Twice they ran this thing on me, where one at a social gathering of a Friday afternoon kind of thing, where we get together and have something to drink and go eat dinner after that. We just meet and go from there. And since it was a social group for singles, we all had some investment there, and since we were all in our 30s, 40s, 50s, we all had our reasons for being single, and we all had some kind of baggage with us, and divorces, relationships that didn't work out. And so the ladies are sitting over there on one side talking amongst themselves, and they look over and say, hey, Gary, do you know what's wrong with you? And I bit on it the first time because I thought, well, maybe they have some useful information, and this is going to be something valuable to me. And instead, now what they ran out was their positions that women are better than men, and men do this, and men are just this way and that way, and so on. And it's like all stuff that's supposed to embarrass me and make me feel belittled, and so on. And so, second time they ran that, I said, oh, wait, don't tell me, I'm supposed to know that one. You told me that one before. Now don't tell me. And this another fun thing to do with it was I'll have my people get on that, and they'll get back to your people, and we'll set up a meeting, and we'll hash that out. We'll get that resolved, okay? Just not right now, okay? That disrupts this process, because then they sit around and they look at it and it's like, and the message I was wanting to give them is don't bother, okay? Don't bother trying to hook me into victim twice. You fooled me once, shame on you, but you fooled me twice, shame on me, okay? I did notice the process, and I didn't want it to go to another level, because to find out, I did briefly get involved with one of those women that was doing that, and then I find out there's a whole nother serious level of games that are being played at the private level. And so it's like, whoa, just, back out of that one. Don't make eye contact, don't engage him. Don't engage is a really good response. Don't give it any energy. Really good example of that, and that is specifically negative reinforcement. You know, behavioral psychology says there's positive reinforcement, which encourages the behavior, and negative reinforcement, which discourages it. And the misunderstanding that we have in the culture about that is if we tell somebody to stop doing something and stop, I hate it, I hate it, I hate it, you're giving it energy, and that's actually positive reinforcement, okay? It actually encourages that behavior to continue. Giving it no energy is negative reinforcement. My dog knew that, okay? My brother's dog didn't. And that's a beautiful example because my dog was an elk hound. He knew this intuitively. And my brother had this young cat. We brought him into the household. And as a young cat, he decided he did things much more than the average cat. He ended up chasing dogs and chasing cats and just being a little hellraiser, or big hellraiser. He was 17 pounds. And when he was a teenager, he started putting moves on everything, including people. I mean, he could walk past the furniture, he'd be underneath there, he'd run out, grab a hold of your leg and bite and kick and so on. And he did that to my brother Sheltie, tricolor Sheltie, and he would react and he'd get all upset, and the cat loved it. It's like, oh my God, that is so much fun. And my dog, the one way that, since he's an elk hound, he had this curled tail, and the one thing that you could always get a reaction from him, if he didn't want to play, you could always play with his tail, try to straighten it out, and he would react to that. Okay, so I saw this cat come out from underneath the furniture, jump up and grab a hold of his tail, drag it down, laying on his back, kicking and biting, and my dog just stopped. Stood still. Cat kept doing that, biting, kicking, looking around. Come on, come on. He didn't do anything. He didn't even look back. Just stood there for probably 45 seconds, maybe even a minute. Finally, the cat let go, and the dog turned around, looked at him like, "Are you done?" Walked away. He was telling the cat, "I'm gonna play. You know, don't try to hook me. You can't engage me with that. Okay? Don't play. Don't give any energy at all. Don't engage." And this happens in traffic. I had this happen a couple of times. I was driving to work, and I had long hours. This was in a group home for juvenile delinquent girls, and I would be going to work in the evening and working all night. There were long shifts, and when I was working those shifts, I about 2 or 3 of those, and I'm driving low energy and so on. And so heavy traffic and interstate, and going around a bus, and I had a small car, a little sports car, and this big Plymouth sedan got up so close behind me I couldn't see his grill. And back of my truck is waist high, or my car is waist high, and he had to be this far off my bumper at 65 miles an hour. Okay, so I got around the bus, pulled over. That wasn't enough for him. Of course, I made the mistake of engaging him. I flipped him off. Okay, and he went ballistic. He started screaming and yelling at me and driving me, ran me clear off the road, and then he saw what he was doing. He went over, corrected, and almost went into the median, then come back, and then for the next 2 miles he's beside me, trying to get me yelling and screaming and honking and wanting me to stop and fight him. That's all persecutor stuff. Okay? He wanted to take it to a violent level. I didn't want to go there. I was going to work. Okay? And didn't want to be engaged. And so what I wouldn't do is give him an opportunity. And so when I get off on the off-ramp and he's still behind me and there's heavy traffic there, and so I went slow. I didn't give him I didn't get stopped. I didn't give him an opportunity to jump out, try to jerk my car door open and fight with me, okay? And so then I drove on to work and ended up maneuvering so that he couldn't follow me close enough that I could get to work, get in the parking lot without him seeing where I was, and get in the building where it was not private, where the violence would be, would engage other people. So anyway, I didn't, after making the mistake of engaging him, continue the escalation. So I didn't let myself be defined as a victim of his anger. So just not giving it any energy at all is a negative response to encouraging the behavior. Okay. A second strategy, since there's little thinking, these are all programmed responses. If you start giving unprogrammed responses, there's all kinds of strategies to disrupt this process. When people start calling you names, one of the things that you can do is simply accept it. Say, Gary, you're the worst son of a bitch I know. Okay. Say, well, God, I was hoping you wouldn't notice. Here I go around all the time knowing that's who I am. You got me. You got me. What can I say? Do you have any suggestions on how to get out of that? How not to be? You can have a lot of fun with it inside your head if you're thinking, because you know that they're not. Okay? So, I always liked Forrest Gump stuff. If someone calls you some kind of a name like you're stupid, Gary, you're just a dumbass. Well, as Forrest Gump's mother would say, dumbass is as dumbass does. And it's like, where can a persecutor go with it? Well, they may try a couple other rounds. And Forrest Gump's mother, she's got an answer for everything. So you can play with it as an unprogrammed response. You can get histrionic with it if you have a flair for the dramatic. Someone levels a zinger at you, you say, whoa, that was close. Whoa. Or, oh, you got me with that. Oh. You didn't get my heart. That's okay. There's a song about that. What is it? Hit me with your best shot. Talking about somebody who's a good game player is trying to run control stuff on a woman and intimidating. Just give me your best shot. I have stopped the escalation from going to violence by threatening violence with people, like a guy on a walking trail. His dogs are loose. They're big dogs. They come charging me. They start to jump up on me. I pushed him over with my foot. Okay. Guy comes up. He's with his girlfriend. He comes up and he says, "You kicking my dogs?" "Yeah, I'm going to fight with you. I'm going to do this and that." And I figure the guy's just bluffing. He's trying to impress his girlfriend. He's also this much shorter than me, so I have an advantage. Although height is not necessarily an advantage. I've had people this tall look down at me. Okay, so you can do it. You can intimidate. You can take a one-up position and be a lot shorter and smaller than other people. Okay, one way is just look over the top of your glasses at someone. It's like, really, I was not in a good mood. I'd been doing some new physical work, and I was sore and I was tired, and that kind of bullshit. It's such a ridiculous situation for a guy to challenge me to a fight because his dogs are loose standing next to a sign that said, "Keep your dogs leashed." The police department is 100 yards away, you know, and he's going to challenge me to a fight because I defended myself against his dogs with a gentle push. And I just said, "Take your best shot," and looked at him. And and he turned and walked away because he didn't want to get violent either. This was all just belligerence. Okay? Another set of strategies are around redefining the win-lose situation to win-win. So one problem that kids run into with neighborhood bullies and so on, a lot of times is the bullies are taking something away from them. Okay? Give them what they want. Yeah? Come take your ball. You say, "Oh, well, you want my ball? Don't steal it from me. Don't take it from me. If you really want it that bad, I would assume it's because you don't have a ball to play with, and you really like to play. So go ahead, take my ball. I'll give it to you." You know, that way you're not losing. If you give something away, you're not losing. Okay. Kids take other kids' lunch money and say, "Hey, you know, my dad always said, you know, follow what the church says and be generous to people that don't have. And I have lunch money. If you don't have lunch money, I'll give it to you." You know? You can also start guessing what it is they really want. They come, take something away. "Well, is that because you want to play too?" "Well, come on, play with us." Becomes win-win. Okay? If you're thinking and paying attention to what's going on, you find out you have a lot of options. You can choose from a lot of different things. The goal of persecuting and controlling and taking someone else's power is to limit your options, to say you don't have any options except doing what I want. Problem is, we see, if you watch one evening of TV, you'll see all kinds of, especially the crime shows, you'll see all kinds of examples of intimidation, persecution, and victims, and people that don't want to be victims being victimized, and it's going to be at the violent level. That's not a level we're going to talk about, because a lot of times that does involve some kind of professionals like police and lawyers and all that kind of stuff. If you can keep it out of that level initially, like in a new relationship, male-female relationship, if you can keep it understand at the social level that that's going on, you keep it from going on at the private level by not engaging, not defining yourself as being willing to go to victim. Ownership is a great way to control someone. So guys will try to own women, and early on in the relationship you see that going on. Either redefine it and as I'm not controllable. You can't own me. You know, I'm not going to belong to you. If they're not listening to that, then you don't get to the level where they become stalkers, and when you try to break up with them, then they start becoming violent or threatening violence or something like that. Goes along with don't go to the next level here. That's strategy number 3. Stop it, you know, at the social level or the private level before it goes violent. Okay, now in relationships that you want to keep, like in families or longer term relationships, a good intervention is to expose the process. And that is like, what is the sequence? What is the beginning? What are the moves in the middle? What is the end? You start exposing that process, you can say, okay, you want to sit somebody down, and it actually, I did this, it ended up terminating a relationship that had been going on for a year, and where the woman started taking these positions where she couldn't treat me with respect. And so there was a lot of little snipes and things going on, and it's like, it happened one day, and so I asked her to, a day or two later, I asked her to go have coffee or something with me. So we did, and I said, this is what I see going on. You're saying these kind of things. This is the way I'm feeling about it. This is, what I get that you're meaning by it, and I don't feel good about that, and I don't want to be treated that way. Okay? And she said, I'm sorry, I can't treat you any better. That's just the way I feel. Okay? You've known me for a year before we got involved with each other, and now you're wanting to treat me like I'm somebody that I'm not. I'm not willing to go there. And she said, well, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I said, okay, well, we need to end the relationship then. And let's say what we need to say to terminate this and leave on good terms and so on. And so we did. And she was kind of like, whoa, taken back. And it's like, and she said, well, let's go back to being friends. I said, I don't want friends who treat me that way either. Okay? And I'm defining myself as someone who will not be victimized, okay, and will not be treated as less than I am. I will not be diminished, belittled, and accept projections of attributions on me, okay, for you to work out. You're going to have to work out your own stuff. And so we ended it there, okay? Usually they don't end up terminating a relationship. If you're in a family, you can sit down and talk with with a family member or something, and say, look, when you're doing this, I feel this way, and I see these kind of moves going on, and I see you trying to get this or that or something else, and what can we do about that? Because we need to clean this up so that we both feel good about it. How can we make this win-win? Because what we're trying to do in that is to get out of the programmed, the knee-jerk kind of responses, and get into some real thinking and problem solving. Okay? If you can engage someone else's thinking in that, you can get them out of these positions. Okay? You could say, okay, you can make agreements. Okay, what are we going to do? If you start feeling angry, how can you deal with your anger yourself, not project it on me, and try to work it out through me, or get me to work it out, or make me more uncomfortable than you are. Okay? Because a lot of this game process is to project discomfort on someone else and get them to feel more uncomfortable by acting out. And if you're dealing with teenage kids, or kids that really start acting out, they will do that, and they will escalate it to the point where you end up saying, oh, you need to stop doing that. Work out your own stuff. Don't put it on me. There's a whole lot more. Like I said, this should be enough right now to give you a pretty good start. If you want more, there's the book Games People Play. This is still in edition. How many editions there are? This book. There's several other books that are even easier to read. This is kind of technical. There's one book that's been through at least 17 different printings, and it's called Born to Win. James and Jungwirth, I think, are the authors. It was written a few years after that. It's written in the same vein. And a lot of people did some writing. I'm Okay, You're Okay is a book that was real popular. I didn't think it was. People in my classes used it. It was a more difficult book, I think, to deal with than one like Born to Win. This is a book I wrote It's no longer in print. It's in a Kindle edition right now, but it's called Genuine Being. And this, I don't talk so much about games there, I talk much more about the developmental challenges that people are faced with, they're all faced with, as humans, particularly in this culture, that end up being expressing as games, whether people are willing to be victims or persecutors or rescuers or whatever, try to get power from other people, for instance. Personal power, in fact, is a necessary developmental challenge. Problem with persecuting is taking power from other people it's like trying to fill up a basket with a hole in it. Okay, you can take power from other people all you want to, and you'll never have enough personal power to do what you need to do developmentally. And we are all trained to be victims, to give away our power, okay, to teachers, to anybody in authority, to parents. If we have power, then we become accountable. And if we don't want to be accountable, we give away our power, okay? And then we blame the other person, okay? We can persecute from a victim position. I saw some woman do this just very beautifully. Went into a store, and this young woman came over. I'd never seen her before, and she was very pleasant, very social, smiling and so on, and said, "How can I help you?" and so on. I said, "Well, I needed to speak with the owner." And well, he was busy, so she said, "Go ahead, sit down." So while I was waiting, a couple of minutes later, this young man walks in, and they come together about 15 feet away, and she walked up to him and said, "I am in such a mood." And I was like, yeah, interesting if true, but so what? He knew exactly what that meant. And he was like, whoa. He went down and one down, and she was, because of her victim-y mood, she was suddenly in control, and she controlled him beautifully with her mood. And obviously, a young woman like that, that's obviously programming, learned it from her, had to be her mother or some important figure. Because you don't just get that kind of thing from being 19, 20 years old. It's not a real thing, okay? But the ulterior meaning for him was something very different. And she started persecuting him from victim-y mood, okay? So there's, like I said, a whole lot more. This was part of what I've covered in the third week of a 10-week class. There's a whole lot more to it. I'm really disappointed that this kind of stuff didn't take more hold. A lot of people know some of the terminology. They don't really know what, they hear about people playing games with each other, people gaming other people, that sort of thing. They don't really understand it. If you followed everything that I'm saying, and I suggest if you didn't get it, listen to it again, and hopefully I'll get a couple more little talks, little videos specifically about victim position, how to, where does it come from, how can you deal with it, how can you deal with the feelings that we make the victim position out of, and the same thing, a different one with the persecutor position. It's like, why do people become persecutors, and what's it really about? What is it they really want? And how do you get what you want from other people? Games are ways to get what you want from someone else without asking. Okay, you get the implication from that is that you can avoid all games by simply identifying what it is you want, finding out who has what you want, and negotiating with them as equals, instead of all games that way. Okay. If a persecutor understood what the power was for, negotiated for it from someone who had it, there'd be no need to get a gang of people together and go around and try to take stuff from people without them being willing to give it to you. Because an awful lot of stuff that people take from other people, they're perfectly willing to give. Okay? On that note, let's close this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you get a lot out of this. Like I said, if you didn't understand it, it's not nearly as complicated as it sounds. Once you start getting a piece of it, you start seeing how it operates, you start looking around and noticing this kind of stuff, you see it around you a lot. You can watch a couple hours of television, you will see a lot of persecutor stuff going on, and a lot of victim stuff, and you'll see a lot of options to it. And one option that daddies always want to give to their little boys is fight back. Okay? Not particularly a good option unless your boy is good at being better at persecuting than the persecutors. And the problem is, you can work up the ladder and there's always someone who is more intimidating, more controlling, will put more energy into fighting than you do. So these strategies that I'm giving, instead of becoming a black belt in karate and learning how to fight back, is avoiding becoming a victim. They'll leave you alone. And I have 25 years or so of experience with operating from victim, because I didn't want to assume my dad's persecutor stuff. I decided I didn't want to do that, but that still left me programmed as a victim to a certain extent. And 50 years of experience with not being a victim or a persecutor, and it's a whole lot easier and a lot more rewarding relationships to not to get into these kind of games. Okay? So anyway, yeah, I need to close. I could keep talking and talking because, like I said, there's a whole lot more to talk about. But I hope this is a good enough start, and good luck with it, and I hope you use it well. So, good day.